Hello and welcome to Market Insights this beautiful Tuesday morning. I am Lavina Emma. Recently, the federal government of Nigeria has placed a ban on the exportation of grains from Nigeria to other countries. The purpose of this was to ensure food stability and food sufficiency in the country. In addition, the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization has said that 26 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, will be in the food crisis situation between June and August 2024. So to forestall these issues from happening, the federal government wants to ensure that there's food in the country. So grains like rice, beans, millet, sorghum, maize have been banned for exportation until there's food sufficiency in Nigeria. In addition, the federal government directed the Comptroller General of Nigerian Customs Service, Bashir Adeniyi, to put all his men on standby and ensure that the instructions given by the presidency to the effect carried out also. So on today's show, to discuss how this ban can help Nigerians and also how we can improve on our local production, I have a guest joining me via Zoom. That is, his name is Prince Joel Bisong. He is the co-founder of GML Farms. So welcome to Market Insight, Prince Joel Bisong.
Thank you very much. It's good to be on set with you this morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning. So,
I believe you could hear me clearly.
I'm sure you heard about the ban that was placed on the exportation of grains recently and how this is going to affect us in Nigeria. Actually, grains like rice, sorghum, millets, maize, to ensure that we have enough food in Nigeria before we start exporting to other countries. So I just want to delve into this matter further, actually. So we know that farmers are in charge of actually growing these products and harvesting them. How do we sufficiently improve on our local production to ensure that these items are grown in larger quantities and being able to sold to the end consumers in larger quantities than what we're currently operating at right now? Because as you know, the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization recently predicted that 26 states will be affected by a food crisis situation between June and August this year. So how do we, to forestall this kind of thing from happening, what measures should we put in place to improve on our local food production?
Okay, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be on Souq News, and I'm excited this morning to be here. Good morning, viewers. My name is Prince Joel Bisong, co-founder of GML Farms. Now, the topic for today is a very interesting one. The federal government, like you said, has placed a ban, a restriction on the exportation of grains, and that's very important at this time. This is a cry that has come I think in 2023, experts have begun to, talk to the federal government to place a restriction on the exportations of some of these agricultural commodities. Nigeria has a deficit in almost all of the grains we produce, whether it's rice, it's sorghum, it's millet, soybean. There is a deficit. As of 2022, for maize, it was about 5.5 million metric tons deficit. And when you have a deficit, you can't start talking about export when you have not been able to meet your domestic needs for food. You must have to be food sufficient first before you start looking at exporting your product. So it's a good move from the federal government to have a restriction, a temporary restriction on these grains. Come to think of it, a lot of Nigerians at the moment are facing a serious acute hunger problem. Also, there is food crisis as we speak currently. A lot of poor homes are vulnerable to these price hikes, and the government has to take seriously strategic moves to help to reduce the rate of food crisis orchestrated by this hike in food price. So it's a good one, and I believe that I'll be able to share a couple of things as the show goes on. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you for that, Prince Joel Bisong. Yes, but okay, to go further into this now, how can the federal government help farmers actually to actually improve on the production of grains? Yes, we've been hearing a lot of measures being put in place by the federal government, such as releasing grains from our national reserves, but it's still not helping the country generally. And I'm sure you've seen protests in different states. In addition to that, some warehouses have also been ransacked because of this food crisis situation, and more international organizations are predicting that it's not going to end anytime soon if Nigerian government doesn't do anything effective to stop this situation from spreading further. So how can the federal government help farmers in Nigeria to actually improve on their local food production?
Okay, I'll look at it this way. The couple of things government can do, which they've already begun. The export restriction is a good one. Another thing that I think government should do is to improve the level of insecurity. We cannot overemphasize the need for security or the lives of Nigerian farmers. A lot of people, farmers, are leaving the farming business because of insecurity. You need to stay alive to be able to farm. Farmers are farming under high insecurity problems. And so government has to pay critical attention in this area, guarantee the safety of the farmers. You know, another thing is provision of infrastructure. The road networks are very poor, especially in those rural areas. Now, the logistics of moving your product from the farm gate to the market is a very cumbersome to a lot of farmers. And this is what makes them vulnerable to middlemen because they cannot move their products from point A to point B because of the high cost in logistics. Another thing that has also government needs to tweak a little is the hike in the fuel pump price of our fuel. You saw that as soon as subsidy was removed, prices of food kept skyrocketing. So government has to look at alternative energy source that will bring down the cost of transportation, logistic in that value chain. And then lastly, there's something I want to say is called the market management policy, where government uses administrative orders to put a price, a price benchmark on agro commodities. It is not supposed to be for such a long time, but it's a temporal measure. Okay, so there is a price, benchmark where you can sell, and that price is controlled by the government. So these are things the government can do at the moment as immediate measures to help, solve this situation. Over to you now.
Okay, thank you for that. So you're also recommending a fixed price for our food items, like this could actually help to curb, in addition to this food items not being sufficiently enough when they're available. You believe a fixed price on these grains can help also to ensure that the products get to the consumers? Yeah, are you
That's
recommending
right.
a government fixed
That's
price?
very important. That's very important. Yes. Yes. So if you look at the okay, so I was trying to say that the consumer price index, it's been all-time high, and so it impacts negatively on the consumer, and the farmer does not even benefit from this high consumer price index. So if the federal government steps in and regulate the prices, then the end consumer is able to buy, and then that margin is transmitted to the farmer. So this is very important. A lot of people have said putting the price limit will shut down competition, but this is just a temporary measure. It's not supposed to last for such a long time. It's going to be like a temporary measure until we're able to get ourselves back on the food sufficiency. Over to you.
Thank you for that, Prince Joel Bisong. Okay, so I'm quite sure. Okay, yes, there's a particular situation that I have observed. Actually, a significant portion of Nigeria's agricultural produce, sometimes when these goods are being transported by road from one state to another, from one part of the country to another, we have issues of the products getting spoiled, whether it's tomatoes or it's vegetables or it's grains. Either it gets spoiled before it reaches consumers. So how can this poor harvest loss be minimized so that we can actually have sufficient amount of food getting to the end consumers? Because yes, you mentioned improving on our infrastructure. Apart from that, like to actually help, because sometimes it's been blamed on crop termites attacking these crops before they are harvested. So how can this poor harvest loss be sustainably curbed actually, so that farmers don't have to start reaping losses when they have put in so much hard work?
Okay, so post-harvest losses contributes over 50% to food wastage in Nigeria, in fact, globally. So this is very important. If we could manage our post-harvest losses, it's going to go a long way to improve our food security. In fact, the FAO has, one of the key components for food management was how effective is your waste management. So we have what we call zero waste. There cannot be waste and there cannot be losses. Waste is what is lost at home, at the household level. There is waste at the household level and there is waste at the farm gate or on transit. So the waste at the farm gate they are all temp losses. While that at the household level, where people buy food and they are not able to consume and it goes bad, is considered as waste. So the government can also help, especially for farmers who are producing perishable goods. Perishable goods like vegetables, tomatoes that get bad very soon. One of the things we did as a farming group was the fact that for our tomato, we did what we call hybrid seeds. And these hybrid seeds, they are not GMOs per se, but they have resistance to temperature and to going bad as soon as they are produced. So you see that a tomato fruit can be able to last for at least 2 weeks before it goes bad. So we had that tomato produced. And so government can encourage and provide these hybrid seeds to our local farmers. The other thing government can also do is the provision of storage facilities. It's not out of place if we have effective storage facilities cut across the zones, cut across the state. So farmers can always have an alternative where to take their products when they are harvested. This can also help. Like I said earlier, post-harvest loss is a big business, is a big problem, not just to Nigeria, but globally. And so we need to innovate around this, have good conversations around this, engage the farmers, engage the middlemen and all the stakeholders, and to think of cost-effective means for which they can handle this problem. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, thank you for that, Prince Joel Bisong. Yes, I understand you. But like you said, it's big business for the farmers, because I'm quite sure they don't entirely dispose of these products when they discover they are rotten or they are spoiled. These items can be used as manure for other people's farmlands also. It doesn't have to be discarded completely. So I'm sure in situations like this, they could be sold as maybe waste for maybe a manufacturing industry, or maybe to another farmer for manure for their farmland. But that being said, actually, like you rightfully said, there is zero wastage when it comes to situations like this. But how can we use technology to educate farmers on the use of technology on their farmlands to help improve on our food production locally?
Okay, so just last week, I was part of the technical team that was inaugurated at the Nigeria Agricultural Research Council. And that inauguration was to come up with a roadmap that will encourage sustainable agricultural practice. post-harvest loss, precision farming, these are all climate smart agricultural protocols. And there is need for continual awareness. We engage the farming group, engage the stakeholders, talk to these people, expand our reach, ensure that there is adequate funding. You can't talk technology where there's no funding, right? And so farmers need to be encouraged by providing capital and educate them extensively before you begin to consider them transiting from their local intelligence to ICT compliance. So it's very important that we continue to create the awareness. These technologies are available. I met someone who is from IoT Africa, who we kept talking, and we saw that there were quite a lot of technological approach to these things, but a lot of farmers are not aware of this. So we are looking at more extension service, more awareness, more penetration, conversations around some of this technology that's available in the language the farmers can understand. Sometimes we can even transcribe these things in the various languages and then talk to their pastors, talk to their imams, go to their traditional rulers, put the people together, have these conversations around them. That way, you're able to, there's a communication, effective communication, and the farmers know what's available and what they can use. So I think this will also go a long way to help.
So going further, Mr. Bisong, now how effective do you think this ban on the exportation of grains will help to solve this current food crisis we have in Nigeria in terms of the available food items not reaching the consumers? Do you really think this ban on exportation of grains will be effective to solve this situation?
Yeah, okay, so we have our doubts of if this is going to be an effective strategy, because 60% of the exportation that is done is very, very informal. Or the Sokoto places, you see that, which has no impact on the farmer, has no impact on the government. So over 60% of the export is done illegally. And so these guys will stop at nothing to still move this product out of the country. So this is big business for them. So the federal government has to, beyond the policy, have the political will to be able to bring these players to book. When you do export, who is the chief beneficiary? Of course, it's not the farmer. It's not the local consumer. There are some set of persons who we call middlemen they've been very helpful, but at this time, they are the chief beneficiaries of this hiking prices. And so I think that the federal government needs to do much more than policy. They must insist on compliance, and they must enforce compliance because these guys have been in this business for a long time and they are good at it. They just come, buy very cheap from the farmer, exploit the farmers, and then take these products abroad and make huge profits. And that money goes directly into their pockets. So this has been the case. The federal government, if it's very, very serious about food security, meeting local sufficiency, then they must insist on compliance, enforce the rules, strengthen the borders, especially from that northern area of Nigeria. These places must come under very high surveillance to be able to check the incidence of illegal exportation of our grains to other countries.
Yes, okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Bisong.
Over to you.
Prince Joel Bisong, yes. Okay, yes, and I'm sure you also heard that the federal government has directed the Controller General of the Customs Service to put a lot of customs men at different borders all over the country to actually forestall any smugglers or anybody trying to export grains from the country. So what other measures do you think the Nigerian government can put in place to address the food crisis situation in Nigeria? Apart from, yes, we've currently put a ban on exportation of grains, but what other measures do you think will be very effective to help us with this food crisis situation?
Okay. So, like I said earlier, you need to. We're going into the farming season, okay, and during the farming season, it's when the hunger is really, really very serious, like and so we need to encourage more farmers to go into the farming. Number two, government has to produce security. We are not just looking at a short-term solution because food security is not just an immediate thing. It has a cascading effect. That means when you start taking proper steps from today, you will see the impact 6, 8 months from now. So if we can curb the insecurity, people can go back to their farms, they will farm. And then they can also, what they call removal of value added tax on food commodities, that the food prices can also come down. And I'm also thinking about the market management policy where there is a uniform in the price of commodities across the country, and then ensure that there is compliance. Ensure that these prices are followed up and maintained. This will help the government. Then transportation has become a very big issue, impacting on high prices of food. The federal government has the power to work on the infrastructure, especially effective road networks. This has to be put in place. Come to think of it, you go to other African countries like Ghana, you go to Kenya, you go to even a place like Uganda, you see that their road network is super. It's working. And so a farmer can move from point A to point B without hassle. This brings down the cost of production to about 40%. Effective road network to about 40%. So these are the things government can do. Like you said, a lot of waste happens and the farmers can convert them into money and all of that. That's a very good one. So the private sector, government can encourage the private sector to come into the space, where there is waste, they're able to convert them into energy, to manure and all of this stuff. So there's just so much the government can do. Countries are coming out of food security. Ghana is coming out. Kenya is doing the same thing. So Nigeria can be food sufficient. It can be production. It's group we have the population, and so this is important. It can be done. Over to you.
Yes, I believe that it can definitely be done. Yes, I do share your thoughts on that too. So, okay, so look, going forward, actually, yes, we know that Nigeria is currently in the West African region. Nigeria is one of the, is a very large producer of these food items and also these grains. And our smaller neighboring countries also benefit from these, exporting these grains to them also. So now, what are the potential regional and international implications of Nigeria's grain export restrictions to our neighbors, and how can this situation be mitigated?
Okay, so when India did that to us, I think in 2023, there was a ban in India for exportation of rice, the ballistic rice. You discovered that most of our companies here in Nigeria suffered. There was closure of companies because they couldn't access sufficient rice. So these things are bound to happen. Countries like Niger, countries like Chad, Cameroon, they depend largely on us to produce some of these things. And so the ban can also have an impact on those countries. But we think that countries should go back into themselves, self-audit, carry out a self-audit, country audit. And when you do that, you are able to, come up with your own innovation. I will say something here. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, he said there are people who are very hungry in the world today, that they cannot see God appear to them except in the form of bread. And so this is the state that a lot of people are, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa. And so food security must be treated as an emergency. Some of our finest brains, some of our best hands must be brought to the table to have conversations around the subject matter. and the political will, to implement policies that will guarantee food security. And I think that this will be very helpful. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you for that, Prince Joel Bisong. It was really great having you on Market Insight this morning as we discussed Nigeria's ban on the exportation of grains and how we can sustainably produce large quantities of our own local food right here in the country to help our large populations.